Welcome dear students. Today we are going to discuss online classes topic FSC for FSC part 1 or ICS part 1, and the topic is application to ballistic missile. This topic is actually related to projectile motion. You can say this is application of projectile motion. So welcome to our board. This is today's topic and this is actually a short question. Application to ballistic missiles. Okay. First of all, we must know what missile is. So missile is something which is fired towards some target and it follows some kind of path like parabolic path and just hit the target or tries to hit the target. So this is missile. So what missile is? Missile is the object fired towards the target and it follows some parabolic path towards it, and this is called missile. Now our topic is ballistic missile. What do we mean by ballistic missiles? So in ballistic missile, two words are very important: unpowered and unguided. Ballistic missile is actually unpowered and unguided missile. And what do we mean by unpowered missile? Unpowered mean it does not require any kind of fuel to be burned to supply power to it. Okay, it just requires some initial push. We just give it some initial push and it just then follows the path under the action of gravity and inertia. All right, we just throw it. You can say we just throws this kind of missile and it follows its path under the action of gravity and inertia. And the second thing is unguided. What do we mean by unguided in this case? Okay, let me give you an example of guided missiles. You might have watched some kind of scene in the movie that some missile is following some target fighter plane, and where that plane goes, missile goes in the same way. Now you might have thought at that time, what kind of missile is that? That kind of missile is guided missile, and that missile is actually following the heat or temperature. It is following temperature or heat that is being emitted from the tail of target. Now these kind of missiles have some kind of sensors or some such kind of things which follow some signals. Like in this example, this missile was following the heat. Okay, so all these kind of missiles are guided missiles. But in case of ballistic missiles, we don't supply such kind of missile any kind of sensor or any kind of such thing which follows some kind of signals. So unpowered and unguided missiles are called ballistic missile. This is all about ballistic missile. Simply throw this kind of missile, it will follow its path under the action of gravity and inertia. Okay, the next thing is ballistic flight. What do we mean by flight? Anything which flies in the air, its motion is flight. So the motion or the fly of ballistic missile in the air is ballistic flight simply. So you can define ballistic flight as the flight of ballistic missile is called ballistic flight, or We can also define it like this: a flight in which a projectile or missile is given some initial push. Why initial push? Because it is unpowered and is then allowed to move freely under the action of inertia and force of gravity. Okay, this kind of flight is called ballistic flight. Now the next question is, what is ballistic trajectory? Now trajectory means path, right? The path followed by missile is called trajectory. Now today we are talking about ballistic missile, that's why the path followed by unpowered and unguided missile. In other words, the path followed by ballistic missile is called ballistic trajectory. Now the very important thing is effect of aerodynamic forces on ballistic trajectory. Now the first thing, we have to understand what aerodynamic forces are. You can simply understand these forces by considering an example like anything which flies in the air, it experiences or it feels some kind of forces, and all those forces are called aerodynamic forces. Okay, anything which is flying in the air like plane, like kite, like anything which flies in the air, it feels some kind of forces due to air, and all these forces are called aerodynamic forces. Now here we are concerned with the effect of aerodynamic forces on ballistic trajectory. Okay, let me give you an example. Consider we have just thrown a ballistic missile and it will simply follow a parabolic path and hit the target. Now it has covered some kind of range, also some value of maximum height. It has attained some maximum height also. Now consider we throw another ballistic missile. Okay, first of all, this is ideal trajectory. Keep in mind, this is ideal trajectory, ideal path, because here we have ignored air friction or aerodynamic forces. Now consider we are now taking into account the aerodynamic forces. Now throw the ballistic missile like this, and this is going far away, and let us consider there are some kind of strong winds are there which are again in the same direction as that of ballistic missile, and they are supporting the trajectory of ballistic missile right now. So what would happen now? Ballistic missile would fall far beyond the target. Now we were expecting it to fall down here, but it is falling down here. So we can say range has been increased and also the height. So we can say range and height both are being affected. Okay, now take another example and throw the ballistic missile in the third case. Now consider right now the wind is in opposite direction like this. Now in this case, wind is opposing the path of ballistic missile. So the ballistic missile in this case would fall before the target. Now we were again expecting it to fall here, but it is being driven here. So again the range is being decreased, and again the height is being affected. So in short, we can say the effect of aerodynamic forces is that it changes the range and height of ballistic missile. We expect some ideal trajectory, some ideal range, some ideal height, but aerodynamic forces don't allow us to achieve these ideal things, right? Okay, so we can say that frictional or opposing forces like aerodynamic forces may change. What they can change? They may change the path of ballistic missiles from ideal trajectory. Its range as well as height may be changed. And what kind of change that may be? They may increase or they may decrease depending upon the aerodynamic forces. Okay. So this is the effect of aerodynamic forces on ballistic trajectory. Now the last thing is why we use ballistic missile for short ranges. Answer to that question is again the same thing. Because if we use ballistic missile for long ranges, then this kind of thing would happen and our range as well as height may be affected, and in that case we would be leaving the situation with disappointment. Okay, so that's why we use ballistic missile for short ranges, because for short ranges effect of aerodynamic forces is very small, and for that value we can ignore the effect of aerodynamic forces. Okay, so for short ranges we use ballistic missile, and for long ranges we use powered and guided missile. Why powered and guided missile? Because in that case powered and guided missile may reduce the effect of aerodynamic forces and they just hit the target for long ranges. But for short ranges we can compromise with the ballistic missiles. Okay, so this is all about today's topic. Hope you understand everything, and take care till the next lecture. Keep working hard and keep in touch with the channel. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.